Okay.
Hi, everybody. This is the first podcast for Raised with Wolves, Trapped by Demons. And I hope that we're going to have several more and
Mhm.
branch out into other topics like how to write your own book and get it published and all that good stuff. All right. So, for today, for our first episode, we have the narrator of my book, and her name is Talia Ambrose, and
Uh,
she does have hi, and she does have a pen name, as do I. My pen name is Mimi Tala, and we're going to talk a little bit about the book and the narration process. And I self-edited, self-published, all that stuff. I had time to do it. I started teaching myself how to do things. And
yes.
Talia, tell us a little bit about how you got into narrating.
Okay. So I am also an author under Tashina Trudell, and I've been writing for about 11 years now. And just recently, within the past year and a half, I decided I needed to spend more time at home with my kids and pursue my writing career more. And my mom actually brought up the idea of doing audiobook narration. And so I thought, I can't do that. I'm no good at that kind of thing. And she's like, give it a try. So I said, okay. And I looked into it, did research for about a year before figuring out the equipment needed, the editing process, and all that. And figured, okay, you know what? It's something I'm passionate about, anyways. I read, I write, let's give it a try. And so I
Yes.
started narrating my first book and absolutely fell in love with it. I love narrating.
Oh, I'm so glad. And it's like you're reading the book, but yet you're putting a voice to it.
Yes.
So
Yep.
I think you can't help but internalize certain things. And
Yeah.
where I found Talia is there's a website called ACX. And what you do is you put in your book and that you're looking for a narrator, and they ask you a few questions about, what kind of accent and age and all that different
Yeah.
things. So Talia, in the beginning, she sent me the first chapter to hear it and everything. Well, we're from different parts of the country,
Yes.
right? So where were you born and raised?
Um, I live in Utah. I was born and raised there.
Yeah. And I was Northeast Pennsylvania. So there's some words that she pronounced that I was like, oh no, especially people's names. But after that, smooth sailing, on time, punctual. I can't say enough about what a good narrator you are.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yes.
I also
So,
remember just I remember looking over the book and thinking, okay, I actually know a bit about this kind of experiences. And so I wasn't quite sure what to expect on how to narrate it. And so I just kind of went off the top of my head. And I suppose that our outlooks were quite different, actually. And so I went kind of darker with it on a tone, if you remember.
so I
And you're
do.
like, no, that's not kind of how I'm doing this. Let's try it more lightheartedly and all. And it worked out perfect. It,
And
it
you had to be
really,
dark. There were certain chapters that you had to be dark. They weren't lighthearted.
yeah,
Um, for instance, you said that it triggered you a little bit. The one story about my ex-husband tying me to a chair so I couldn't go
yes,
out.
yes.
Mm.
Um, yes, with that, we had an experience growing up. My father was not the best at being a good person. I'm trying to choose my words
No, I
here.
can relate. Go ahead.
So he was very abusive to my mother, and that was one instance. I think I was maybe about around
Mm.
4 or 5
Yeah,
years old when that happened,
yeah.
and I remember a very specific incident where my dad had tied my mom to a chair, and it was very violent. The whole situation was very, very violent, and that's just one of the quite a few memories, unfortunately, growing up. And so just going into that chapter, it was like, wow, it's I didn't think that it was a common thing, I guess. It's what I thought. Like, I didn't think that
Actually,
anybody else would have gone through
domestic
stuff like
abuse
that,
is pretty common.
right?
But people don't usually share it or write about
Yes.
it. And what people tell me the most they like about the book is that you could tell that I am being totally honest,
Yes.
telling everything, even if it reflects me in a bad light.
Yes.
Because, when you're in a situation where you have nowhere to go and no one to depend on, sometimes you have to go into that gray area, you know.
Yes.
I like to call it situational ethics. I'm not the one that came up with that term. It is an actual term. But like I think even the Bible says something about if a man's family is starving and he steals bread, is that really a sin? That kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So I had a few things like that. The other thing is, did you like read the book through first or read it a chapter at a time and then narrate? What was the process?
Um, Actually, so I kind of did both, to be honest with you. I did a chapter at a time sometimes, and then other times it was kind of go on the fly. It just depended on the situation during the day. So sometimes I felt, okay, I have a little bit more time today, so I'd read 3 or 4 or 5 chapters in advance and then narrate those. And then other times I was like, okay, well, I've already read those chapters, but I have more time to narrate tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and keep going on it. And so some
Mm-hmm,
of them were a surprise as I went, some of them weren't.
mm-hmm,
Um, a normal tactic for me now, because this was quite a few months back, but normally now I will read the entire book all the way through.
mm-hmm.
So I guess I am not caught off guard, I suppose.
No, that's fine. I just wondering, what your personal process was in narrating. It's
Yes,
not like you buy the book and you read a book. This was a different situation.
exactly.
Um, I have had people come back to me and say um, they were reading the book and, feeling a little sad. And then I'd make them laugh, it'd be something that made them laugh. And then all of a sudden it'd get so dark. And especially people that knew me.
Hmm.
And when it got violent, they would have to walk away. They would have to put the
Yeah.
book down and take a break. Um, well, yeah, that's just what it was. And then I had other people tell me that they couldn't put it down, because they're going to
Right.
see
Yeah.
what happens what happens next. But how did you, as a reader,
Hmm.
how did you like the book? What did you not like? What did you
I
get
can't
out of
actually
it?
say I didn't like it. Any part of it, I actually really enjoyed it. And um, I mean, I don't enjoy the stuff that you had to go through, of course, but I mean,
Person.
your ability to tell your life is so real. It made it easy to connect with. Just everything was very just real, I suppose. Like a lot of the
Relatable.
stories that it was
Mm.
like living in the moment with you, and that was really nice because when you read a fiction book, you are in a different type of world. You're in something that you knew didn't happen. But
Mhm.
then when you're reading your life story, going through like the different scenarios with the Vietnam and just through with your situations in the fires and all, it was very real. You could feel your emotion, you can feel what you were going through.
Thank
And
you.
so that was nice to just be able to feel that on that level.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you said you could feel the emotion because I have gone through a long term of going healing from some of those things. And there were different ways that I used coping strategies that weren't the best,
Yeah.
in the beginning, which I do talk about in the book.
Hmm.
And sometimes I forget the exact quote, but it's like sometimes you have to have chaos before you can find out who you really are,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And when you're going through it, that you're not thinking that at all. You're thinking, oh my God, another day of this. What do I do? How do I
Right.
get
Yes.
out of it? What do I do
Exactly.
next? And you were saying about fathers. My father was an alcoholic also. And I never thought I'd be an alcoholic. Of course, I married one right off the bat.
Right. Yeah.
And the alcoholism for me didn't start right away. I wasn't a big drinker. But domestic abuse, I think for a long time, I'm hearing stories now from my cousins that uncles that I thought were so wonderful were beating my aunts,
Yeah.
were intimidating, were not letting them leave the house. And it's astounding.
It's
Now
kind of
that's,
like,
yeah, go ahead.
it's kind of like how you said that, and I'm not sure it was one of your first chapters that, what happens in the home stays in the home. It was that kind of mind thinking or set
We
of
were
thought
taught that.
process.
We were
Yes.
taught that. In fact, it's so funny because I had one girl get in touch with me on Facebook that I haven't heard from her since grade school, maybe. I mean, a long time. And she said, I used to walk home with you after school, and you never said a word. Like I never said anything about anything in the
Yeah.
in the family, and people just didn't know. But I did bury myself in books. I loved reading, and I'd go up in my room and read and read and read. And I'm so, I mean, the universe gives you these opportunities. I grew up with a library across the street. A
Right.
library
Yeah.
right across the street.
Your escape right there.
I know, and it was amazing. And I remember the one time I wanted to get Gone with the Wind. And at that time, they had the children's section, the adult section, and they wouldn't let me take it out. They said, that's an adult book. I said, well, they were telling me about it. My English teacher told me to read it. I had to go
Right.
across the street and get my mother. But and again, this is the wonderful thing about books and the scary thing about books. When I read that and I was 13 years old or whatever, I wasn't picking up on the what was happening to the slaves and how bad it was, and I wasn't picking up on a lot of the what she wanted you to see and realize. I was just the surface story. And now today, when you hear about places where they want to ban books and burn books because they don't like what's in them, and they don't want to talk about what happened to Black people, they don't want to talk about what's happening right now to women and
Yes.
gays. And it's like, you know what? If you're a woman and you can do it, whatever way you can do it, your voice needs to be heard.
Yes, I agree.
To be heard. If I picked up Gone with the Wind today and read it, I'd be appalled.
Right. Yes.
I would not see it the way I did when I was 13,
Mm-hmm.
But it's a process, and the writing of it came out of 2020, of course.
Yeah.
Everybody discovered things, and
Yeah.
my therapist told me to do it as therapy, and I did it, and next thing you know, and I enjoyed it. And I went the more common way, which is try to find an agent, and then the agent
Yes.
finds you a publisher. That's impossible.
Very, very lengthy process that you have to, in a way, kind of have to be a little lucky about, but also very extremely persistent
Exactly.
about.
Now, are your books all, did you go that route with any or all
I
of them?
did. I did not actually. I self-published all of my books.
Okay.
It was a little bit more difficult 11 years ago to self-publish. Just let me rephrase. Not necessarily difficult to get it self-published. Just the process of it was a little bit more
Yeah.
difficult. They didn't have the
Yeah.
tools that they do now to make it easier.
Yeah.
But it was definitely. I had never thought about even publishing my own books at all. It was just kind of a hobby that I thought, I'll just put this off to the side. I need to go to college. I need to get an education. I need to have a career. Writing's not a career. You can't get published. And so I had never thought about it. And then self-publishing came up and I'm like, okay, well, maybe
Yeah.
I can get a book out
Yeah.
there then.
I found mine on Amazon, Kindle Create, and I was like, oh, this is great. So I had it all written on Word, and they formatted, they, did the chapters, they told me what kind of margins to have and all this stuff. I mean, now it's not perfect. There's things that I need to go back, and I do plan on adding to the book and making a second edition sometime. but I already started writing a second book, so it's got to wait.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Like a year ago, if you told me I'd be having this conversation, it's just amazing to me.
Yeah.
And
And me also, because I actually have very, very high anxiety about social media. Um, and so at first, when I had started on this journey of the narration, I thought, I'm just going to stay in the background. I'm going to narrate. I don't need to push it any further than that, write my books. And then it started coming to reality that I'm going to need to do social media because, you have to have that exposure. And my anxiety was like, no, don't do this.
yeah, I agree. I was used to just posting pictures of family and things like that. So I made a separate web page for the book, Raised by Wolves, Trapped by Demons. And I'm not real great. Twitter is really difficult for me. I don't kind of like Twitter. Instagram, I do sometimes. I do it mostly for marketing. But when I did this whole thing, and the book came out, there was, how can I put it? My children act like it didn't happen, the book.
I guess.
And, because people will say, oh, what do your kids think? I go, I don't know. I don't think they even read it. I don't talk about it. But and you know this because you did the book. I had them, they had to be part of the story, but I didn't make them the story.
Yes.
I'd say they were at their grandmother's or they were asleep when certain things happened or, minimal exposure at that because it's not my story to tell their story. That's how I felt.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of, that's actually a little refreshing in a way. Not that, I also have children and they are my life. I absolutely love them. I could not live without my kids. But I think that as a mom and I'm also married as a wife, I I actually stopped writing for a long time because of starting a family. And I kind of felt like I lost myself for a very long time. I was what I like to call a mom bot.
Yeah.
I did nothing but work and take care of my family. And I lost all my hobbies. I didn't write. I didn't read. I didn't even sing to music or anything. It was always cook dinner, get clothes ready,
Yes.
all that. And it's kind of nice to see we're people and there's a separate part of our lives that's not just
Identity.
kids.
Your
Yes.
identity. Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think
so being able to see that with you is nice.
Well, thank you. My husband, God bless him, he's a wonderful husband. I make sure I tell everybody he's my third husband, but we're together 31 years. So that means it was them, not me. It's my favorite line.
Right.
But the poor guy, God bless him, he was always like a jock, like very athletic. And unfortunately, he got Parkinson's. And it is a progressive disease, and we think he's in about stage 3. He has difficulty with some things. And I was with 2020 not going anywhere. I was starting to feel like a full-time caregiver. And I actually 40 years ago was diagnosed with like chronic depression and anxiety disorder, which isn't surprising with the way I was brought up and what I experienced.
Absolutely.
But my GP said, I think we need a therapist. I think you need to talk to a psychiatrist, see, what's going on with you. Because I started being mean to him. And that's not me. And they said, that's your depression and anxiety coming out, and who else is there? You and him. And that's when the therapist said about writing and some medication, of course. Needed some medication. And I don't drink anymore. Because sometimes people, when they're drinkers like that, they're self-medicating. They don't realize it, but they're self-medicating. And when you have depression and you're self-medicating with alcohol, alcohol's a depressant.
Exactly.
So, and all that's in the book, of course,
Yes.
But now this is the thing. It's like after 4 o'clock, he kind of winds down a little bit. He's not very communicative. And I say, okay, I'm going to go write. And I go in the bedroom and I shut the door and I write for an hour or 2.
Yeah.
And it's
That's good.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, I'm I I'm not quite there yet on my situation. I have a
No,
toddler
you're a
at that.
2-year-old.
So yeah, they it's always time for a sippy cup. So
Oh gosh, I cannot. My
so we just
granddaughter, yeah, my granddaughter had the nerve to make me a great grandmother. I
well,
said,
congratulations
I
on that.
know. I said, I'm not ready for this. And he's adorable, but he's 2. And yeah, I know. And I still remember what it was like with my 2.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to our writing and stuff. Um, I looked into a little support group for writers on Facebook, and I was, going on, and Amazon gives you your royalties. I think it's the 28th of every month.
Mhm.
And around the 28th of every month, these people were like saying, "Oh, I got a big $1.50." And, they were bitching that, they weren't making money. So
Mhm.
I said, "Well, how are you marketing?" They weren't doing any marketing. I mean,
Yeah.
I know some people write just to write, but I think if you're going to publish, I think it's more gratifying if you sell a few books.
Right. When I had first released some of my books, I have a paranormal series that it got quite a bit of attention. It made quite a few sales. But my other books did not and still have not. But I didn't market them. And I wasn't writing to make money. I was just writing to get my books out there. And it just so
Mhm.
happened to be that my paranormal series actually got some attention, which was nice.
Yeah.
Um, but now that I'm actually wanting to pursue my career in it, I have taken back my book. So if my name does get searched under my Tashina Trudell,
Yeah, you
it's
changed it.
I had 10 books out, but now they're down to 4 because I've taken everything back so I can edit them
And
and work
yes,
on one series at a time
yes, and it's
and
going
get
to be
them back out there.
monetized. Yeah, there's so much I want to talk to you about the process and writing and publishing and all that. And we're going to have to do another podcast
Yes.
because we could go on and on. But the other thing too is, I found out about that. I had it published, and then I found out another website which is called BabbleCube, where they translate it for you into foreign languages.
Okay.
And I found someone that did Italian, which half of my family is Italian. And
Yeah.
anyway, I had to translate it, and I think it was last month I sold 4 Italian versions in Italy, and I was like,
Right.
so
Yeah, that's a very huge accomplishment. That's really nice. It's nice to know where you had that done also because I don't know if many authors know
no.
about how
and
to do
and
that.
what's good is it's the same process. It's a 50-50 with you and the translator.
Okay.
There's no money paid at all, and they need to market, so they get money too. So you're getting marketing done by the translator, and you're doing marketing. And
Hmm.
I really love that. And the book that I really wanted it in Spanish, but the person I picked and made the contract with is very, very good.
Hmm.
And I had to wait, and it won't be published till the end of the year. But
Okay.
I will tell you that with this line, um, I found out through research that in India, they have the least amount of translated books from
Really?
English. Yeah, from English to any languages. They speak more than one.
Okay.
So I found someone that did Hindi on BabbleQ. And
Okay.
this is a funny story. She sent me the first chapter to look at. Did you ever see what writing in Hindi looks like?
I have not.
It's not letters, it's symbols. I'm like,
Interesting.
so where it says, do you approve? I went, yeah. what, what do I know? But she
Okay.
she finished the book, and it's out there, and she'll be on
Nice.
one of the podcasts. So
That's really cool. That's really cool.
yeah, and that's why I picked it, because I thought, look, they don't get looked at, they don't get recognized. People don't think to translate books into Hindi. They think about
Mhm.
Spanish right off the bat, maybe French.
Yeah.
So meantime, and we're gonna have to wrap up probably, but meantime, I did Ancestry DNA for
Okay. Yeah.
Christmas 2 years ago. And my father was adopted, as you know, and his
Hmm.
father told him that he was his real biological father. that he had an affair and that he was in an orphanage for 4 years before he got adopted. Which to me, I always thought, oh my God, how could you have your son in an orphanage for 4 years?
Right. Yeah.
Have the guts to tell your wife already. And they couldn't have children. They weren't conceiving. So a relative that knew about my father only because she worked in the orphanage said, why don't, so he adopted him. So we believe that story. We believe that story. My father believed that story. We knew who his Irish mother was because I don't know how he thought. Oh, he had the birth certificate. That's right.
Okay.
And he told us when we were older. And he hated the Irish. He hated the Irish. There's a lot of prejudice in the 50s and people coming over from different countries and just terrible. Anyway, I do the DNA test. It comes back. My father was 100% Irish, which meant he was lied to his whole life, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I found a first cousin who I'm in touch with that lived 6 blocks away from me my whole childhood. And her father was my father's half brother. So my father grew up 6 blocks from his brother. They were both alcoholics. They probably drank next to each other in the neighborhood. So this book now is going to be the new one, Unearthing My Irish Roots, because I traced them back to 1710 in Ireland.
Okay.
On both sides of my father's family. So what I'm going to be doing is historical semi-fiction. And the facts, birth dates, what was going on in Ireland will all be true. The fiction will be the life I create for them.
That's interesting.
Because I have to
sounds really good.
Yeah, so I'm like pretty well along with that one. You might want to be my narrator. We shall talk.
Right? Yes, that sounds very, very interesting.
Yeah. So I'm glad we did this and we're going to do it again. And like I said, I want to talk about the different aspects of the process for people out there that want to write and publish. And I also want to touch on the topics in the book because the real reason I wrote the book was to reach women that may be struggling with any of those topics that I wrote about, so that they see there's a way out. And so that's that. Anything you want to add? Is there anything you're working on right now?
I am working on a series. I just finished a book for Eric Schubach, and it is called The Bridge Trolls, and it is going to be out as soon as ACX approves the quality on it. So hopefully in the next week and a half, maybe. I'm really excited about it. It's a very interesting series.
All right, text me when it's out. Text me.
I will.
And we will promote each other, which that is part of it, especially with women. We need to do this. We need to do this. And I'm finding out more and more how grateful women are. And I have men that read the book that liked it too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but I wrote it for them.
So I did have a quick question for you.
Okay, sure.
I've since I'm kind of on both sides here with being an author and a narrator, I've heard a lot on both sides on whether it's worth it to get your book turned into an audiobook, because there's a couple of different routes you can go with, either doing upfront paid per finished hour, which tends to be roughly about around $3,000 to $5,000 depending on the book, the length, the complexity of it, accents and things like that. How experienced your narrator is, what their per finished hour is.
Our session now. So I would love to. Why don't we pick up with that next time?
Okay, absolutely.
We're internet. We'll start with that. Okay.
Perfect.
Because that's what I want to do. I want to talk about real life and also what you were just talking about, the process of getting there.
Very good information.
Lovely talking to you. I hope we do this soon. We're going to do it soon. I'm going to try to talk to everybody, but you just have a great time with your kids, especially that 2-year-old.
Why, thank you.
All right. See you soon. Bye, Tahlia. Bye.
Bye.